Welcome to Pack It Like It's Hot, the official podcast from MJS Packaging, where we dive into real-world packaging insights with the people who know it best, our team, our partners, and other industry pros. Let's get started.
Good morning. Welcome to Pack It Like It's Hot. I am your host, Greg Clarke, and I'm here with Cindy Vogel. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Greg. How are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I'm excited to hear from today's guest.
We have a treat here today. We have Jennifer Schiavone from Signature Label based in Oak Harbor, Ohio. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Cindy, also.
Hi, Jennifer. So glad you could join us.
Thank you. I'm very flattered to be invited to your podcast.
All right, so we'll go ahead and just a little bit about Jennifer. If you want to finish up there.
Yeah, please. Jennifer, you've been with Signature Label for how long? Tell us about yourself.
I've been with Signature Label for 9 years now. Signature Label has been providing decorating services for over 40 years. And while this might age me, I have been working in container decorating for almost 40 years.
That's all right. That's
Really?
very impressive, actually. That's quite a background. I'm sure you've seen a lot of different changes. We'll have to dig into that as we go through this.
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to Signature, I was with a different independent decorator. They focused more on glass and ceramics, and I was with them for 19 years. And then I started my career in packaging and decorating with Libby. Libby is America's largest glassware maker.
Sure. Okay. I was going to say, I know the name. I couldn't place it for a quick second there, so thank you for that.
In
Glass
Toledo?
tableware, so drinking glasses.
Okay.
In Toledo, yes.
Okay.
I am a Toledo native.
Oh, well, look at that. We have that in common. Go Toledo.
Words you don't always hear.
No, in fact,
For sure.
nobody has ever heard those words.
All right. So, Jennifer, Signature Label does a lot with screen printing and hot stamping. For those in our audience who aren't familiar, can you explain those two processes, please?
Yeah, I will. I'll try to do it kind of simply. Screen printing is a process of applying a decoration directly to a container. So the process of screen printing uses screens, squeegees, ink or enamel, and a curing method. So pretty basic as it sounds, but the screen printing process, there's an image that is transferred color by color directly onto a container. So there's a screen made for each color or pass. So once the screen is made, there's a squeegee that moves across the screen and it transfers the ink through the open areas. And the open areas of the screen would be your design. So it transfers it through a screen mesh onto the container. If you use UV inks, UV cured inks, they're organic inks that we usually use for plastic bottles, just due to the container. The UV inks require a UV light to cure the decoration. So a color is screen printed on and then it's hit by a UV light. Then it goes to the next color and then it's hit by a UV light. Once all the colors are on the bottle, it's done. The curing is done. It can be packed and shipped.
Okay.
In glass decorating, oftentimes they use ceramic enamels. So these enamels, they're like a wax-based enamels, and they're in a heated screen. So same process. You screen one color individually. After the first color is screened, the ceramic enamel dries instantaneously, and then the next color can be screened. Once all the colors are screened on with ceramic enamels, it's not cured. It needs to go through a high-temperature leer, and it'll travel through this leer at about 1,140 degrees Fahrenheit for about 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
And then it actually becomes chemically bonded to the glass. So there's a process of like gradual heating up, maintaining heat, and then they call it annealing, where it gradually cools to restore the strength to the glass, and that decoration is permanently on the glass. So either way, whether it's UV cured organics, ink, or ceramic enamels, the end result is just a really high ink deposit on the container. It's very durable, it's opaque, it's recyclable, and it's generally thought to increase the perceived value of the product.
Sure. It was funny when you were talking through the process, I was going to ask you how long that took because it sounded like so many steps. And I thought you were going to say, 4 minutes. So I was a little surprised when you said.
Yeah. Glass decorating is a very a warm and lengthy process where decorating plastic bottles, and I came from a glass world, so going into the plastic decorating, it was quiet, it was quick, it was, there's not a lot of heat involved, obviously.
Sure. Interesting. That's very interesting.
It is.
So we also hot stamp. I think you asked about hot stamping as well, right?
Yes.
Tell us more about that for those in the audience that are not familiar with hot stamping.
Sure. So hot stamping is the process of applying a metallic or maybe a holographic design to a container and using heat, pressure, dyes, and foils. So it's the result is just a very highly reflective, shiny decoration, gives a really high perceived value. The process is, you have a heated, customized dye, and the dye presses the foil against the container, and it activates a dry adhesive that fuses the design to the surface. There's a couple approaches to hot stamping. The method we use here is a hot stamping station that's located within our screen printing line. So the hot stamping goes on similar the way our screen printing does. This process allows us to add a hot stamp to a decoration. So if you were doing a 4-color decoration and you wanted a hot stamp, it's done all in line. However, there's a limitation to the process that we use, that we can only hot stamp on very rigid containers like polypropylene or maybe like a heavy-walled PET. And this is due simply to the pressure that's needed to hot stamp. So standard inflation that we'll use in screen printing will not create a firm enough surface to accept the hot stamp without distorting the bottle. So in this process, it is limited to the more rigid containers. But bottles and other processes can be hot stamped via, it's called blow stamping. So in this process, the bottle is firmly encapsulated in a cavity, which it introduces a really heavy inflation to create a very firm surface capable of standing the process. So, but it's a standalone process, so it's not in line with screen printing. Either way, hot stamping is it's a great process. It's resistant to water, fading, wear. It's suitable for long-term use, and it creates a finish that just speaks luxury.
So to the average consumer, can they tell the difference between these different decorating effects, or is it just all look like printed glass or printed plastic to them?
Hot stamping has like a mirrored finish. You can actually look at yourself in it and see your reflection.
I see.
So it's very, very reflective.
Okay, good to know. Before we continue, we want to thank you for listening. Each month, you have a chance to win a $50 Amazon gift card and a Pack It Like It's Hot podcast logo coffee mug for our podcast giveaway. During this episode, we've shared a designated keyword. This month's keyword is holographic. Again, that's holographic. You can submit that keyword on our website through the podcast giveaway page, mjspackaging.com/podcast-giveaway for a chance to win. We'll select one eligible entry at random at the end of the contest period. See the official rules on our website as well. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Jennifer, many times startups will contact us and they're looking for custom packaging. It's one of the most common things that we have in our office and with our business. We will often recommend that they use stock packaging and emphasize decorating the bottle rather than creating a custom bottle.
Right, until maybe they're more established and then it can make sense for them to move into that custom. But to start out, yeah.
Can you add some color to this? Why is that good advice to a startup?
We really agree with that. And we always highly encourage startup brands. We'll meet them at, say, trade shows to, first of all, work with a distributor for bottle selection, closures, cartons, and decorating that can grow with them and are suitable to their volume. So, for example, startup brands may want to enter the market. Maybe they would just use a stock white bottle, and that looks very generic maybe to them at the startup, but they can make it their own with the use of the decoration. So they can use the accent colors and the decoration to differentiate SKUs. It's just a more, cost-effective approach than maybe custom colors or a custom bottle at first. As they start to grow, they can go back to the distributor, who can be very effective at helping them select maybe a custom bottle or maybe a different bottle, and keep their risk low and their costs low until they grow into a level that supports that.
Right. What are the biggest cost drivers in decorating?
Well, overwhelmingly labor. So the cost of decorating, the largest cost driver is labor. I mean, even up to 70% of the total cost is labor. Oh, wow. And items that drive labor are often related to the pack out of the bottle, surprisingly. So if the bottle has a cumbersome pack out, we may have to add labor to the line as far as, dumping the bottles, like small boxes. You're constantly handling the boxes and then filling them and labeling them. So labor is very affected by the pack out. If they were using foam sheets between layers or snake wrapping or cell dividers, that all adds labor to the line. And then next, after that, other items are obviously volume, is going to affect their cost. If they have multiple SKU changes, we work with some brands that may have 50 SKUs plus, and we're constantly changing the SKUs during the decorating run. That affects the cost. Certainly the number of passes on the bottle size or shapes, very complex, maybe complex curved bottles will add to the cost. And then one final thing is a heavy laydown of ink. We refer to it as a flood coat. But if the brand wants to put a large area of ink across the bottle, that will affect their cost also.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
Sure.
What are some common artwork mistakes that you see?
Yeah, artwork is, artwork's always one of those areas where, everyone gets a little bit nervous about, and, it may be the largest area of getting hung up as far as designing the artwork and submitting it. We ask for artwork to come in vector files, which are separated, so we can separate all the colors because, again, we're going to make a decorating screen per each color or path. The one thing that we see is when they're submitting this, the text component of the graphics is done with a font, of course. If they do not include the fonts with the file, then we can't duplicate what they're looking for. Or another easy solution is just converting those fonts to curves or outlines. So it's no longer a font, but it's a graphic image if they convert it to curves or outlines. So that is one of the biggest areas. Either the fonts aren't included or the text is not converted to outlines.
Interesting.
So the other thing that we commonly see is if there's links in the file. So if they're linking to something else, a lot of times the links aren't embedded in the artwork. So we'll have to go back and ask for links. It's easy, to get that information. It's just going back and forth with them. And then the other probably more common thing we see is just not calling out the colors on the artwork. So all these issues are really easy fixes, but it just can create a delay and some back and forth.
Yep, I can imagine. So what are some of the current deco trends you're seeing that are really resonating with today's consumers?
So a lot we see our brands moving towards a more simple, minimalistic graphic. So there'll be a lot of clean lines, soft or muted colors. They may use a pop color in there, but they're very neutral shades. They're not a lot of busy graphics. Is one of the trends that we're seeing. Also, contrary, we're starting to see a reemergence of using very bright colors, both in the bottles and the decoration. So colors like think back to the 80s, like the neon oranges,
Sure.
the magenta,
Wow.
bright yellows.
Yep, that's
Fun.
back.
We're
Fun.
starting to see that. So that's kind of interesting and kind of fun. We continue to see the request for metallics, shiny finishes. Also, a lot of times we'll get asked for tactile finishes as well. Sustainability push is always evident in the shift, like we see a shift from pressure-sensitive labeling across all the industries, even in like value brands, going towards screen printing, which is reduces the carbon footprint, is generally considered a little bit more sustainable. Some industries stay very, they want their logo to look very much the same. They want to be recognized, like pharmaceutical, cleaning products. A lot of those brands, in our opinion, just kind of stick with what they always have. But the personal care and the cosmetic industries, they seem to always want to freshen up their graphics.
Yeah.
They need to have some eye-catching designs, or their graphics need to be aligned with maybe their sustainability statements.
Sure.
Or just the brand, the way they represent themselves in the market.
I was going to ask you which industry was the most daring. I thought you would probably say personal care, beauty. So that's in line with that, right? The other one we see that it has some really cool graphics are spirits, right? They tend to get a little out there with the way they'll represent their brand and have a kind of a cooler identity that you can get, just do some fun things with.
For sure. Yes. And there's a lot of competition on the shelf. So you definitely have to have something that catches somebody's eyes. And I think you're absolutely right. Between spirits and the personal care cosmetic industry, that is very true.
Very cool.
Nice.
Very cool.
Makes sense. Tell us, Jennifer, how has decoration evolved with rigid packaging in the last several years, and where are we going from here?
Well, what we're seeing, I guess, as far as decoration goes, screen printing equipment has kind of morphed into using servo screen printing. And servo screen printing is important because, first of all, it does help reduce labor. It's very expensive, but it does reduce labor because everything is automated, automated loading, unloading, vision systems, all of that. But it's able to offer extremely tight registration. It's able to offer an increased decorating real estate. So we can decorate lower on the bottle. We can decorate all the way around the bottle. We can achieve very fine detail with it. So the decorators are having to move into screen printing. And screen printing is just totally different. Everything is controlled by the computer. You don't have gears, and you're not adjusting mechanically, screens. You have infinite amount of adjustments, which gives you the ability to really get a very tightly registered deco in the industry, and then store those settings and be able to achieve it just the same every time you go to print. So that's kind of what we're seeing. Just the demand for the complex printing, high quality, expanded decorating real estate is pushing into this technology. We see digital printing continue to evolve. And as you were talking about in the spirits industry, this is very common. So digital printing doesn't print directly on the surface. So the screen doesn't touch the surface. It is, so you don't have to worry about if you have like a curve. Take, for instance, a liquor bottle, which, has an elegant neck and then curves around. Digital printing can print in those areas where traditional screen printing cannot.
I see.
So we see that a lot in that industry. In personal care, cosmetics, or other industries where the customer's PMS color that's associated with their logo, so Coke Red, they won't veer off of Coke Red. With digital printing, it's not spot colors, so you don't necessarily get that exact color match. So in some industries, they're not ready to embrace digital printing. And digital printing the equipment's expensive. Unless you invest a whole lot of money in high-speed digital printing, it's slower. So it doesn't quite yet fit, but we really think as things As it progresses, just like everything else, costs will come down, and it may be an area really to look forward to in the future.
That makes sense.
Fascinating. Yeah.
And Jennifer, you mentioned organic inks earlier. Is that the standard, or is that something that you're moving more toward kind of along the lines of sustainability and everything, or is that just what the standard inks are?
For UV cured or even LED cured inks, they are organic inks. There are some variables within UV cured inks that they may be solvent-based inks, which may be less recyclable or less sustainable. For us, we just use UV cured organic inks. That is the only thing we screen print with here.
Okay. This has been very interesting. I've learned a lot in the last 15, 20 minutes. This has been wonderful.
Really good stuff, Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
It's an easy topic to talk about.
Well, it's obviously something you're passionate about and knowledgeable about, so that does make it easy.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks again for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer, so much. We appreciate your time, and you have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to our MJS podcast. Make sure to follow and listen on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. Tune in next month when we will be joined by another packaging expert. And remember, packaging solutions are just a click away at mjspackaging.com.